All boys love basketball. If they don't, they're not real boys. All boys love basketball. If they don't, they're not real boys. Does all boys really love basketball? How did organized sports come to play such a central role in the lives of every boy or man out there? Good day everyone. I am Liberty A. Guzman from BASS 2-1 and I am here to discuss the article of Michael Messner entitled Boyhood, Organized Sports, and the Construction of Masculinities. In the past 2 decades, the rapid expansion of feminist scholarship has led to fundamental reconceptualization of the historical and contemporary meanings of organized sports. Organized sports has served to bolster a sagging ideology of male superiority and help to reconstitute masculine hegemony. According to the study of Michael Messner, that most men who were asked to recall the times why they got or how they got to play a sport, many of them were a bit confused because after all, playing sports was just a thing to do, like a hobby or like something that has always been there, something that is part of existing. Sports for men became a natural cycle that happens like a season to their lives. It is a cycle that they cannot change nor undo. A 42-year-old black man who played basketball during college stated that basketball is something just like going to school, with the thought of playing sports, and if you didn't, there was something wrong with you. It was just like brushing your teeth. It's just what you did. It's part of your existence. It was a natural instinct, but really, there is nothing natural to throwing a ball to its hoop, hitting a ball with a bat, or even jumping over hurdles, because these are all just but a collective practice that constructs masculinities. The interactions boys have with people and the society are the ones contributing to the development of their masculine identity and status. The relationship of a boy has with his father, uncle, older brother, friends, or even some acquaintances with the same sex influences their conception of boyhood and to the development of their masculine gender identity. Even though most men who appeared in this study has a deep relationship with their mothers, it still appeared that they have an exclusively male world that exists only between 2 males in the family. Older brothers and uncles served as teachers and role models not only in the athletic terms but also went to compete for attention and status within the family. Pressure from family is inevitable, most especially when there is someone who is athletically inclined first. It is like they become the standard in the family, especially for boys. They become the example wherein it becomes the measurement for the next son to follow. He has to at least see his older brother as the pattern to follow, or at least meet the expectations of his family, because there is a tendency that he doesn't want to become a disappointment. This pressure didn't become easy for anyone to deal with because it became difficult for boys to feel themselves or to even enjoy sports. But this doesn't really apply to all because some boys still sees this as a motivation to become better in sports. It became their driving push to strive harder and to become a better athletic person. Although athletic skills may be learned through older brothers or uncles, it is still the relationship between a father and son that we find the keys to the emotional salience of sports in the development of their masculine identity. We can say that there are many boys who are exposed to sports, but there are still some who needed push to develop interest on sport. and this push is vitally played by having a father. A white 33-year-old man interviewed stated that the push he got from his father made him realize that maybe he really does belong to sports and that it is a good experience to remember. But some who were pushed and encouraged by their fathers didn't have the same ending as the 33-year-old man experienced. There are instances that they would feel pressured because their fathers had expectations on them. One example of this is when a 24-year-old man described his awe of his father's physical power and presence and his sense of inadequacy in attempting to emulate him. He said, "My father had a voice that sounded like a rolling thunder. Whether it was intentional on his part or not, I don't know, but my father gave me a sense, an image of him being the most powerful being on earth, and that no matter what I ever did, I would never come close to him. There was a definite feelings of physical inadequacy that I couldn't work around." You see, fascinating how the feelings of physical inadequacy relative to the father impacted the young man's permanent internalized image. Sports activities as a means of identifying with and living up to the power and status of their fathers is not always a hard and painful task as a son. Although some were not pushed by their fathers to become athletic, but there's still an urge in them that wanted to do it because they know deep inside their fathers still want them to be at least athletic just like how they are. Their fathers became their role models whose approval mattered. Sports experience may come from relationships from older brothers or uncles, but the early emotional salience of sports comes from the direct relationship one has with his father. The sense of commitment that these young boys made to the development of their athletic careers is explained better as a process of development of masculine gender identity and status in relation to same-sex peers. Many of the men interviewed said that they only played sports because everybody does it, or maybe because it is the trend, or in short, it is what boys did. They indulged themselves to playing sports that were introduced to them by their older brothers, uncles, and fathers that were exclusively in the male world. Although the gender terms that is socially constructed between girls and boys became a natural thing to them, there is still a considerable interactions between them, especially on classrooms and on playgrounds. According to Thorne's observation, when adults set up legitimate contact between girls and boys, it usually results into a relaxed interaction. But when there are activities imposed by teachers and other adults, just like for example, when teachers ask their students to line up separately according to their sex, it becomes an explicit arena of risk because gendered boundaries are heightened. Sex-segregated activities such as organized sports that are structured by adults provides context wherein gendered identities and separate gender cultures results and come to appear natural. Boys equates masculinity with competition, physical strength and skills, while girls could not because it is believed that they just could not participate in this kind of activities that boys do. Though there are separated activities for boys and girls, that explains why many of the boys feel a strong connection with sports while girls didn't. There is still a longingness inside them to connect with other people as a primary motivation in their early sports strivings. They felt insecurities and loneliness that it appears they needed and craved for connection and unity with other people as well. But why do young males find organized sports an attractive context in which to establish a kind of closeness with others? According to the observation of Piaget and Lever, that girls tend to have a more sensible and flexible orientations, when it comes to game rules. They are more prone to make exemptions and tends to innovate the game in the middle of it to make it fairer to all players, while boys tend to have a firmer, flexible orientation to the rules of a game because for them it is the rules that protects fairness in a game. According to Gilligan, based on the fact that early developmental experiences have yielded deeply rooted differences between males and females' developmental tasks, needs, and moral reasoning. The developmental identity of boys involves the construction of positional identities. That means there is a sense of securing through the separation from other people. Males do really appear to develop positional identities while they fear the thought of intimacy, but retains a need for connection and unity from other people. This uncertainty towards an intimate relationship is a major thread that runs through masculine development throughout the life course. Boys who seeks and fears attachment at the same time finds organized sports as a safe place in which there is no intimate attachment with others within a context that maintains a clear boundary, distance, and separation. According to Kidd forthcoming Messner 1987, that young boys at first may find sport as an opportunity to experience an intimate closeness to others, but the structure of sports and athletic careers lessens their fears of intimacy and helps them develop a truly close and intimate relationship with others. The conception of sports creates a competitive spirit on young boys that they give too much attention to winning, as observed whenever coaches would ask young boys to line up while the other older boys would stand up and applaud for the younger ones. And every time their coach would place his hand on top of their heads, just like how a priest lays his hand for benediction, the older boys would applaud loudly or softly for that certain boy based on how good or bad his performance is. This created pressure for the boys because not all of them are confident with their performances. Other boys would feel proud, but some felt a disguised terror on their faces as the judgment awaits. These experiences taught the boys that the key to acceptance that sports is not just about being there, hanging out with the guys, or being friends with them, but rather it is a competition for attention and connection that they long for. It is seeing who is better or who is not doing well. It is about beating one another. Most of the boys in the study achieved success on sports, and their uncertainty for connection with others was met, at least for that time. But the organization of sports to young boys stimulated a development in them that Schaeffer called it as conditional self-worth. Boys became aware that for them to be accepted as good players, they have to be winning most of the time. They valued the importance of winning because if they don't win, the people who supports them will be very disappointed. And that is painful for them because the things they work hard for will only turn out to be a disappointment to others. Expectations led them to strive hard, not knowing that they lost the conception of enjoying sports. Doing well on sports became the path for boys to get the attention they craved for. But sometimes their efforts only lead them to disappointment because pressure takes over them that it snatches away the supposed enjoyment they would be feeling, especially when they put too much effort to excel to make people proud. In this study, many men throughout boyhood and into adolescence strived hard to achieve success, and it became their primary means of connection with others. They felt connected every time they win or reach success. Even though the feminist psychoanalytic theory is useful in providing insights into their initial attraction to sports, it is still important to give awareness and recognize that young males' internalized uncertainty about intimacy does not fully determine the outline and direction of their lives. Boys with different backgrounds and experiences who interact with boys who also has a different backgrounds and experiences as them leads them to decide different choices and define situations differently. This is a part of masculine developmental of boys where they get to interact with different people in their lives. Boys with higher status have similar experiences to boys who are in lower status. They both emphasize the importance of having a father, brother, or even an uncle as role models who introduce sports to them. Both groups speak the delight in receiving attention and acceptance from their families and peers in the group for early successes in sports. Two men were interviewed with regards to their boyhood athletic experiences. First, a man born in a white, middle-class family stated that he loved playing sports at an early age because of early exposure. A lot of sports came easily at an early age, and because they did, and because you were successful at something, he thinks that you're inclined to strive for that gratification. It's like if one is good at it and likes it, it's instant gratification. That is why he did something that he is very good at. Second, a black man from a poor family said that fortunately, he had some athletic ability and quite naturally, once he starts doing it, he didn't care whether it's jacks. As long as he is enjoying it, he will keep doing it. If one is good at something, he tends to show it off, that skill to others, and that is the case for the black man who came from a poor family. As we can see, even though both have different status, the way they explained sports for them had similarities. Despite the similarities, there are still differences between the two groups. Males from lower status backgrounds tend to develop a higher commitment to sports career than those in higher status background. Males who are in the lower status background are expected by the community to be at least good at something related to sports, even when their parents does not force them to do so. It's like an expected inclination to men. They also engage to sports because it protects them from trouble like being addicted to drugs or breaking into places. Sports gave them a sense of protection from those things, while those who are in higher status are given wider opportunities in life, not only in sports but also in terms of academic opportunities. As time passes by, when boys enter into junior high school, most of them shift their attention away from athletics to educational careers. They've seen sports as a temporary career because there are instances that one might get injured or not be good anymore. How are they going to deal with it? What future awaits for them if they lose that skill? In the lower status family, the parents are also teaching their sons to work hard. However, when they go to school, their perceptions of working hard had widened their understanding of what they are capable of doing to improve themselves. Because of their socio-economic background, their choices are limited to what they know based on their situation. Meanwhile, boys in the higher status background are given more choices because they have wider opportunities to choose from. Some boys in the lower status have settled that being in sports is the basis of having a masculine identity. It became their measurement of masculinity when in fact there is a broader concept of it. The career structure of organized sports became highly competitive and hierarchical. That is why young boys from a lower status background had to struggle with their conditional self-worth as they realized that the immediate rewards, such as fun, status, and attention, had to come with an occupational dead ends. And some young boys on the same status who focus on their athletic careers are not so successful as they found out later on when realization hits them that sports is not the only aspect that will support their masculinity. While boys from the higher status background had boosted their masculine identity because of their athletic accomplishments, and according to Messner 1989, that there are wider range of experiences and life chances led to an early shift away from sports careers as the major basis of identity.